Hi, I'm Coach Amber, and welcome to the Revero Success Story Podcast. Today we have Brett with us, and he will be sharing his success story. Welcome, Brett.
Hello, thank you. I'm glad to be here. I listen to the podcast all the time.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's start out with you telling us a little bit about your background. Like, were you having any health issues or any kind of problems before starting a meat-based diet?
Yeah, for the most part, when I grew up, we were pretty, I guess, normal, standard American diet, and back then it probably maybe it wasn't as bad as it is now. But we ate sort of like the normal. We ate some meat, we ate some vegetables, we had some grains with that, rice or whatever. Um, but we weren't overweight, and I wasn't overweight as a child. Um, just ate, the kind of the normal foods that we thought we should eat, and just what we thought was healthy. Um, like I said, I wasn't overweight, but I probably did have some body image problems because I was skinny, but like I had a little tummy and just, normal little, kid not feeling comfortable in their own skin kind of thing. But that really didn't bother me too much, after high school. And so fast forward, I get into college, and I gained a lot of weight. I was never a big fan of vegetables, and kind of decided when I was out on my own, I'm not eating those vegetables. But then I learned real quick that maybe the pizza and chicken nuggets are not like the basis for a healthy diet. So I gained a lot of weight and just had to sit back and go, okay, like I have to change something. And I mean, it wasn't any surprise to me what I needed to adjust. So, I got rid of pizza and chicken nuggets and hamburgers with French fries, and ate, actually just more meat and vegetables type dinners and meals. And I did lose a lot of the weight, but that was the sort of like, my first run in with being overweight. And I gained a lot of weight too. I gained like 30 pounds, or at least that's what I'm willing to admit to, right? So, but I kept it off, and then, graduated, and moved to New Orleans. And of course, when you live there, like everything comes with a bunch of fat and a grain or on a baguette, and with a whole lot of sugar probably too. So I kind of gained all the weight back when I got there, and sort of got into the corporate world, working every day, sitting behind a desk, and started to feel bad, right? Just like, not having a lot of energy. And I remember having one of these moments where I was laying in bed actually, and I'm in my 20s, I weigh 185 pounds, and I'm not super tall, I'm 5'6", so it's a lot of weight on me. And just trying to sit up out of bed, and I couldn't do it. I was so out of shape and overweight. I actually had to roll myself out of bed, and I was just like, this isn't normal, right? 20-something-year-old shouldn't have to do this. So that was kind of like the first point at which I said, I need to make a drastic change here. And of course, I had tried some different things up to that point to lose some of the weight. So, if it was as easy as just, watching what I eat and, moving more, I wouldn't have gotten that heavy in the first place. That was sort of when I first ran across like a ketogenic style diet, and it was the Atkins diet, right? And it wasn't the Atkins diet now, where it's shakes and bars and what I call keto junk food actually. But it was just, when you read the book and went through it, essentially the way to do it was you had to eliminate grains, first of all, because they had a lot of carbs in them. And you had to obviously eliminate refined carbs. And at that point in time, we had already switched to, I think we were using olive oil at the time. And, maybe it wasn't as bad back then. I certainly don't think there was a problem with it being doctored with canola oil at that time, like there is now. We were cooking with it though, because we didn't know any better. So, but I lost like all the weight essentially on that, and that was amazing. So, I maintained there, and then really had an unfortunate setback, which was not related to diet at all, but has kind of impacted my whole life since then. And I had a neck injury, and that created a lot of pain. I had pain in my neck, pain in my back, and a lot of muscle tension. And it was really really bad for a while. I wasn't even actually able to feel like half of my body, like it was like the pins and needles tingling. And so this is like one of those pivotal moments that kind of changed like the game for me. And I did physical therapy, and that helped. So physical therapy, exercise, but then it was sort of like the diet evolution comes, so it has to change again, because just sort of like loose Atkins style wasn't really working for the inflammation. And that's when I found paleo. So stumbled across Mark's Daily Apple blog, and I mean, it was a game changer for me, because I was able to change my diet, gain some more knowledge about why I should be eating, what I should be eating, and why, right? And it did help me to get off the prescription medication and just kind of control it with like massage therapy and my own physical exercise. So that was a big thing. And then I actually moved overseas for a while. And I was, kind of like, even though I was still dealing with this neck injury, I was what I thought living my best life, essentially. I was active, I was fit, was cycling and working out, doing P90X, and just eating, and the weight stayed off. I was able to control weight and control the inflammation. I still had some muscle pains and flare-ups, and like I said, just controlled that through massage and just like over the counter pain meds, or like ice packs or something. So but then, like, I had, everything changes always. So moved back to the US, time to move back. And this is when I had like another one of these dietary epiphanies. And that was when I moved back to the US. Now, we had come back to visit occasionally, but I noticed when we came back, we went to a restaurant. I noticed the smell of the oil when I would come into the restaurant. And I noticed it smelled very, very bad to me, very off, rancid. And I was like, what is going on here? We could also tell the difference between things that were made with high fructose corn syrup versus like sugar. You could taste the difference. I probably couldn't tell the difference anymore, just because I've been back in the US for so long. But yeah, when you're away from it, you could definitely tell when you get exposed to it again. And because I had my diet figured out, my exercise figured out, I just said, look, I'm just going to do what I've been doing. I'm not going to change a thing, right? And I mean, within a month of moving back to the US, I had probably gained 10 pounds back. And it was just, yeah, it was like disheartening. I'm like, what is going on here? So, I said, well, I'll just, stick with it. And the weight just kept coming back and coming back, and, trying to eat the best things I could. I know that, it's really hard though, if you're eating any packaged food, because there's going to be, plant oils in it. And I think, that was probably increasing my inflammation. So I thought, well, I'll just exercise harder. And that was not a good solution at all, actually. And eventually I just ended up at the point where I couldn't even work out anymore, because the inflammation was so much and my pain was so much afterwards, that I would just be in like agony for like a week. And so I wasn't recovering. I was tearing down my body with these exercises, but not actually recovering. And whether that was inflammation or just, insufficient nutrition or both, it just wasn't working for me, and I had to stop. And that's where I was for like, several years. I just stopped exercising. And then, another one of those pivotal moments happened in my life, and that was 2020, and lockdowns, and being in the house all the time. And I think I probably just started snacking a little bit, maybe because of stress and everything. But before I know it, I'm eating 3 meals a day and 3 snacks. And even though I'm doing this, I'm always hungry, and I couldn't figure out why. Like, just constant craving for food, and I gained even more weight. So I'm, already been struggling to hold my weight, and it goes up even further. And I mean, that's depressing. And then I developed something called GERD, and didn't really know what this was. I just knew I was having constant, heartburn, all this acid reflux. And one of the things that I didn't realize about GERD is that you have like this constant bubbles in your stomach. Like you've always got like a little bit of gas, and then like a little gas bubble comes up, and it brings the acid with it, and that's when you're feeling the heartburn. And so that was sort of like one of the things that led to this moment in 2020 that really changed my life and finally moved me towards carnivore diet. And so, one night, like I remember, I would always have a cup of coffee in the evening. It's like the one thing, it would make my heartburn terrible afterwards, but it's the only fun thing I have left to do in 2020. And I'm going to have my evening cup of coffee. I'm going to enjoy it until it makes me miserable. And I also have this thing where I might be drinking coffee or water, and then sometimes when I swallow, my little flap in my throat doesn't seal all the way, and get a little down the windpipe, and I cough a couple times. It's not really a big deal. I'm fine afterwards. But on this occasion, everything kind of collided at once, and I was taking a sip of coffee, and a little bit went the wrong way. But right at that same time, like one of these gas bubble comes up, and it's bringing some acid with it. And the next thing I know, I feel like I've got stomach acid in my lungs, and they just like shut down. And, the instant reflex was to try to just cough and get everything out of my mouth, spit all the coffee out. I didn't do that, of course, because I didn't want to spit coffee all over the living room rug because, my wife would kill me. So I'm going to be a good husband and run into the kitchen. And I spit the coffee out, but I'm just coughing and coughing, and I can't catch my breath. And I'm like gasping for air here. And then that was it. I don't remember anything after that. It got real dark, and it got real quiet. And my wife noticed actually that it got real quiet too. And so, this is how I say, this is how you know when your spouse truly loves you. If your spouse loves to knit, and in the middle of knitting, they hear absolute quiet when you were just having an absolute cough attack and sounded like you were dying a minute before, and then it goes dead silent, and they throw it down without leaving a marker or counting stitches, they truly love you. So my wife ran to the kitchen, and scary moment. She finds me on the floor, and I've vomited, and I've got vomit in my mouth. I'm not breathing. And so yeah, she had to get me up off the floor and do the Heimlich. And this was when I was like, hey, I'm not having another one of these moments, right? And I'm not going to get killed by coffee. So yeah. And then honestly, then it got even worse before it got better, which was terrible, because the GERD got worse. And I really suffered through it for a few more months. And I got to the point where I was having like, and antacids, immediately after dinner was over, and then like every 2 hours. And every 2 hours meant every 2 hours the whole night long. I would wake up in the middle of the night every 2 hours and have to have antacids. And so I'm not sleeping. I'm losing my mind. And that's when I was like, I finally got to do something about this. I got to figure this out. And I'm either at this point, even though I hate doctors and drugs, I'm ready to go to the doctor and even get some, whatever antacid medication, even though I know it's not actually a solution. It's a Band-Aid, because I can't live like this. So I actually had, weirdly enough, heard of the carnivore diet before. And so I was like, let me just check this out. And so I knew, the only thing I knew was it had something to do with Joe Rogan. And so I searched for Joe Rogan and carnivore. And the video that pops up is the interview with Jordan Peterson, where he's talking about, his experience and his daughter's experience. And it's like a 3.5 hour video. I watched the whole thing. Of course, the carnivore stuff's right at the end, but I loved every minute of it. And I watched all the way to the end. And that day I went carnivore. I was in the evening. So the very next morning, from that morning forward, I was carnivore. And I've been eating carnivore for 172 days now. So in another week, I'll be 6 months.
That is awesome. And I'm so glad that you did find something, and we'll find out here shortly what's improved. But I can tell you, I do relate to the whole acid reflux thing. Now, I never got as bad as what happened to you, but I have had that acid go in my windpipe, and that was horrifying.
Yeah, it was
So,
terrible.
yeah. Okay, so the next question I want to ask you is, when you did start the meat-based diet, how did you implement it? Like, what were you eating? And did you have any transitional issues?
I just sort of jumped right in, and I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants, but also researching and watching every video on YouTube at that time to try to figure out what I should be doing. And I quickly kind of came to the realization that I'm just going to try to be strict, but not stress about this, right? My goal was really, I'm going to eat any and every kind of meat that I want to, and I'm not going to be like overly restrictive at first. I did cut down to just meat, water, salt, and coffee. Kept my coffee. So, but I did get rid of spices, and I did get rid of dairy. And the reason why is because I had this sneaking suspicion that something was causing some allergies that I had had going on for probably also the whole of 2020, and that was probably contributing to some issues that I was having. So I just knew it was something, and I thought, the more I can cut out, the better. But I'm just going to eat all the meats, and that's really what I did. And in terms of transition, I think it was pretty easy for me because I didn't have any keto flu. Like I said, for 20 years, I've been doing either Atkins, keto, paleo. So I had a lot of experience with being fat adapted before. So really no issues with that. But I did have, the bathroom issues, the distress there. And it wasn't too bad. I did, probably didn't really become an issue until maybe about 2 weeks in. And then it was just for a couple of weeks, off and on, not even all the time, but just off and on. And I just tried to, adjust. I knew it was probably a little bit because I just had no fiber anymore. So there's not fiber locking up all the excess fluid in my colon, but there's also, more fat, and my body's just adjusting to that. So I just kind of tried to tailor my fat intake a little bit to help with that. What else in terms of adapting? I did just try, the one thing I really tried to do when I started was, because I heard a lot of people talking about this, was just listen to your body, right? And so that was really the thing. Like that's the reason why I was like, originally I'm just going to eat everything I want in terms of meat, and then let my body tell me what it wants. And it really did. I started off like a lot of people probably, bacon and eggs, four eggs and 4 pieces of bacon every morning was pretty much a staple for me when I started. Um, and then like kind of as I said before, like things always change, right? And that is the same on the carnivore diet. And by the time, maybe about 4 months had rolled around, I just didn't even crave bacon anymore. And I actually, until yesterday, I just had some bacon yesterday because I was just like, I'm going to have some bacon. I haven't had any bacon for a couple months and I feel like bacon. But yeah, I had like just a 2-month window where I didn't even have any bacon. Other things I did, like I said, I did get rid of dairy. And then I did test it, add it back. And sure enough, that was causing me problems. Like I ate some dairy and like within 15 minutes, I'm having a reaction to it. And I can tell. And I'm like, wow. So it was dairy. And so I just kept it out of the loop. Every once in a while, like once a month, I would test it, and go, okay, I'm going to try some cheese. And nope, still can't do it. Nope, still can't do it. And that was the case for probably, 4.5 months straight. And then I tested it again just last month, and I was able to eat some dairy, and it didn't have any issues with it. No, I didn't rush right back into it because I wanted to be cautious still. So I still don't eat a lot of dairy, tiny bit of heavy whipping cream occasionally in my coffee. Sometimes I'll just have ghee. I used a lot of ghee, obviously, because I couldn't do butter or anything. Even butter would have an effect on me. If I put butter and cooked with it, I would be like, I just couldn't tolerate it at all. So now a little bit of goat, like raw goat or raw sheep smoked cheese is what I do on occasion. And honestly, like my diet now is pretty much mostly beef, eggs, and ghee. And that's just because that's what I crave. So that's what I eat. And then the last thing, this was interesting. The last thing I added, and I added this, well, I added it early on actually, but probably about 2 or 3 weeks in, I added liver in. And I didn't necessarily want to, but I did notice that I was craving these foods. And at first I thought, well, man, maybe it's just like a sugar thing. I was craving strawberries and blueberries, but also avocado. And I was like, well, that doesn't really make sense because avocado is not sweet. So then I thought, well, it's just a transitional issue. I'll get over it, right? And for a week, I tried to ignore it. And as time went by, I just couldn't ignore it anymore. I was obsessing over these things. And I thought, okay, I gotta figure out what this is. And I was thinking, maybe it's some sort of nutrient deficiency, right? It's a craving, obviously. And I just looked up, okay, what are strawberries rich in? What vitamins and minerals do they have? And same for blueberries and same for avocado. And I lined them all up and looked and found what they all had in common that they were high in. And then I looked for animal foods that had the same thing. And lo and behold, beef liver, the animal superfood, multivitamin pops up. And I said, okay, I'm going to do some. And I actually, we buy like a half a cow from a local rancher every year. And so I had beef liver in the freezer that we had never used. And I thawed some out. And I remember it was nighttime. I'd already had my meals for the day, so I wasn't going to eat. But I just wanted to prep it, cook it. And I did. And I had just the tiniest little bite and some of the little bits out of the pan. And I woke up the next morning and I felt like I wasn't obsessing over these foods as much as I was before. And I thought, okay, well, maybe it's just mental, who knows, but I'm going to have some liver. So I had some that day. And like the next day, And from then on, no cravings for any specific, keto or vegetable or fruit foods. So I don't know if it'd work for everybody. That's not what I'm saying, but it certainly worked for me. So um, yeah, beef, ghee, eggs, and liver, and I do eat nose to tail. So
That's awesome. And I think that is so incredibly smart to look at what you were craving and see what they had in common and then find an animal-based food that works. That's so smart. I love that. That's so intuitive. Good for you. Okay, so the last question, and this is always my favorite, is what has improved since you have gone meat-based? Everything that you talked about in the beginning, what has changed? And was there anything that just stood out to you that you weren't expecting?
um, it's funny, like the most the biggest thing, right, was the GERD, and it was probably like the most anticlimactic in terms of resolution. Within maybe a week of starting, I just didn't really need the antacids anymore. I mean, honestly, by like just a few days in, I noticed I was, might need one or two, and I was sleeping through the night, so that was amazing. And then maybe had one or two antacids total during the second week, and then nothing. From like the third week on, I just don't even remember using them anymore. And before that, I was going through like a bottle a week. So that was a huge change, and it just happened right away. It was amazing. Um, the other thing that happened right away was like that constant cravings, constant hunger went away immediately. By about Probably by about day 2 or day 3, beginning of day 3, I went too mad, and that was it. Like I just was like, I'm not hungry. I'm not going to eat breakfast. I would normally not eat until somewhere between 10 to 12, and then I'd eat dinner, and somewhere between 4 to 6, and that would be it. I wouldn't eat again until the next day. Um, Other things, you know, the I remember I woke up probably day 5. I woke up early because I just had all this energy when people talk about it, and it was pretty amazing. I'm a pretty steady circadian rhythm anyways, so normally I go to bed between 10 or 11 every night, and I normally wake up between 6 or 7, and that's with or without an alarm. So I remember waking up an hour early that day and just not being like waking up and groggy and I'm like, oh, what's going on? No, it was like eyes wide open, 100% alert, just looking around like, what's going on here? Right. And very quickly, I had all this energy. So I thought, well, let me do something with it. I'm going to go for a walk. And I started walking, and I would walk every day. And I hadn't walked in like probably, a year at all. I just had no energy or motivation to do it in 2020, and was still not exercising, but not even walking. I mean, just doing nothing at all, and that just was a complete turnaround. Um, and then maybe about the month 3, I said, I'm gonna get back to exercising. I was taking it very slow. I just did walks. I'm not running. I'm not jogging. I'm not doing anything crazy, just walking. And yeah, month 3, I started adding exercise back in. That's probably about the same time that my hunger really picked up, and I started shifting towards actually craving more beef. But yeah, and then sort of the last thing was just like the joint pain. Joint pains went away a little bit, when I first started walking again, and I noticed that if I actually had some collagen powder, and I would add that to my coffee, and that actually helped. And I thought, well, okay, if I feel like it's helping, I'm going to keep doing it. So anytime I felt like my joints a little sore, I would add some collagen powder that day. And then when I started exercising, every once in a while, I might need 2 scoops of it. But recovery on exercise was amazing. I'm going from, again, beforehand, I wasn't able to exercise and recover. It was like a week of pain. And now I would exercise and, a day maybe specifically just for the muscles that I worked out to feel better and not having this agonizing long-term pain. So it's just an amazing turnaround. I mean, I just can't even believe how well this has worked for me. Yeah.
That's amazing. And Brett, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. That was amazing. And I'm so glad that you've benefited and you are living a more quality of life. That's everything. Health and being able to live happy is everything. So thanks again for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Bye, Brett.
Join Revero.health for a 30-day free trial to get access to live Q&A with VIP guests, social community meetings, member discounts, low-carb healthcare providers list, forum, workouts, monthly challenges, early access to podcasts, recipes, carnivore diet guide, fasting guide, shred guide, and much more.